What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Dineen, and this is my review of NXT, which took place September 26th, 2023. Now, in addition to this review of NXT, I'll also be going over this Saturday's premium live event, NXT No Mercy, currently scheduled to be a 6-match card, 5 championships on the line, taking place in Bakersfield, California. So towards the end of the show, I'll give you my predictions for all 6 of those matches. But without further ado, let's get to this NXT review. Now, it started off with a very good match, actually. It was the finals of the Global Heritage Invitational, and formerly known as Pete Dunne, Butch was going one-on-one with the member of Gallus, Joe Coffey. Now, of course, Joe Coffey was alongside Gallus members Mark Coffey and Wolfgang. They always travel in a pack together. And that was until early on in this match when Gallus tried to interfere. Mark Coffey and Wolfgang, they were actually up on the apron, and the referee was not having it. He tossed both of them, sending them to the locker room area. Joe Coffey, visibly incensed by this move, took his frustrations out on Butch, just as he was early on in this match. He was really taking it to Butch. But Butch took command shortly thereafter. However, Coffey hit Butch with a powerbomb, looking to put a bow on it, to no avail. On the outside, Coffey went to run Butch into the ring steps. Butch stepped aside, and Coffey went directly into those steps. Butch rolled him into the ring. Butch then hit Coffey with his finisher, the bitter end, to punch his ticket to No Mercy, going one-on-one with Noam Dar this Saturday for that Heritage Cup, which I'm really hoping that Butch gets the job done. It's been great seeing Butch on NXT yet again the last couple of weeks. I loved watching him on NXT UK for many years. And so as much as I've enjoyed him the past year and a half, 2 years on SmackDown, member of the Brawling Brutes alongside Ridge Holland and Sheamus, it's been great seeing him back here. Now, what I found very interesting was on Twitter, Pete Dunne or Butch wrote, "I need a second," meaning I need backup at No Mercy this Saturday. Noam Dar is going to have all of Meta-4 out there, so I've asked an old mate to watch my back, someone who knows Noam and the Heritage Cup rules pretty well. British strong style, one night only, probably. Or maybe this will be a full-time thing if they decide to keep Butch Pete Dunne on NXT longer. And below that post, that tweet, he put a picture of him back to back with Tyler Bate from their NXT days just a few years back. So I found that to be very cool, seeing that Tyler Bate will be coming out with Butch having his back, hopefully, unless he decides to turn on him. That'd be very interesting. And the one reason two reasons I'd be okay with that is, as much as I'd like to see Butch defeat Noam Dar, if Dar ends up winning or Bate turns on Pete Dunne, that would mean A, we're going to be seeing a feud with the two of them again, which is, I'm here for it. Those two can wrestle for days. And B, it would mean Butch would be staying in NXT just a little bit longer. So why not? Because even though Butch does get some time on SmackDown from time to time, I think he was even in Money in the Bank this past summer. He's usually in a tag team capacity, much like with Ridge Holland, rather. So seeing him in singles action again has been great. And look, I'm here for it. So I'm not opposed to that at all, regardless of what happens on Saturday, even though I am personally pulling for Butch to get the job done. So now backstage, we have Dominic Mysterio with Mackenzie Mitchell. Dominic Mysterio, I noticed he had a black eye, his left eye. He must have got that Monday night up against Dragon Lee when he successfully defended that NXT North American Championship against Lee. And, this was very interesting to find out if, in fact, Dominic Mysterio is going to have a match like he was originally scheduled to have one this Saturday at No Mercy. He was supposed to be up against Mustafa Ali, but then Mustafa Ali, in the middle of a program with Dominic, was released last week. He was part of that 20-plus person release from WWE, so that was a shame to see. So this is how this went. Mackenzie was interviewing him, and Dominic said he's free on Saturday to hang out with Mommy, Rhea Ripley, the Women's World Champion, on a comfy couch while eating some chicken tenders, just as Damian Priest went on record to say a couple weeks ago. He's one of the pickiest eaters he knows in Dominic Mysterio, and wherever they go, he typically orders chicken tenders. So that's where that reference came from. And Dom goes on to say, "No Mercy, no Dom." So he's saying you won't see me there. Mackenzie Mitchell says, "But didn't you see what Shawn Michaels posted prior to the start of NXT going on air regarding the latest update for your North American title defense this Saturday?" And Dominic replies with, "I don't follow Shawn Michaels on social media." And Mackenzie said, "Well, I do." And tells Dominic there will be a triple threat match later tonight to decide his opponent for No Mercy. We have Axiom versus Tyler Bate versus Dragon Lee for the NXT North American Championship. And it got a little more interesting as this show went on. There was actually another member added to this match, changing the whole dynamic and possibly the outcome. So we'll get that in a little bit. Next up, we had Trick Williams going up against Joe Gacy. Joe Gacy came out with Ava, as he always does. Trick defeated Gacy relatively quick. I was shocked to see this. His rise to prominence certainly on the way. Gold in his very near future, potentially even before this weekend's over for one Trick Williams. So I was shocked to see this match end so quickly, but good for him. Obviously, NXT is very high on Trick Williams right now, and he has improved drastically over the last several months, big time. He was always a pretty good talker. He's always been very good on the mic. Has a great look, great physique, and his wrestling skills, the most important thing, has improved a lot. So post-match, Trick Williams gets on the microphone because he's being interviewed by a young lady in the center of that ring. Trick says getting that dub feels good. He's then asked, however, about Carmelo Hayes, his buddy old pal, going one-on-one, defending his NXT championship against Ilja Dragunov this Saturday at No Mercy. She's asking him, what do you think about this match and the chances for each of these guys? And he says, this might have been my best match yet. And you're going to ask me about another man's match? It looked like Trick was ready to really go in on her about her having the audacity to ask him about his friend's match and not so much about his future, his career, and what just took place in the center of that ring. Again, he did beat Joe Gacy pretty quickly, which is surprising. Gacy is a formidable opponent. But Trick simmered down a little bit, and then he responded with, well, Dragunov, he hits hard. I'd be a fool to bet against him. But by him, I mean my dog, Carmelo Hayes. Trick Melo gang, we always gonna be here. At No Mercy, Melo's gonna retain. And now that I think about it, Melo already has a championship. I think it's time I go get mine. Very interesting. Trick, literally from start to finish of this episode of NXT, was either seen or discussed. And so we're going to be discussing him just a little while later in this episode to see what really happened as far as him being in any kind of title contention went. Next up, Mackenzie Mitchell with Blair Davenport backstage. Blair tells Gigi Dolan, you think you can share my same vindictive nature? Match my vicious intent? Well, you can't. If you don't believe me, just watch what I do tonight. Now, the two of them have been at odds for weeks now. I believe recently, it might have even been as recent as last week's episode, where Gigi pulled a move that Blair would typically pull and attacked her. So now Blair's like, okay, well, I could do that even better because I have more experience and, well, I'm a heel through and through. So they were scheduled for a match later on in the night as it stood at this very moment. So we'll be talking about the two of them in just a little while. So Baron Corbin versus Josh Briggs. Now, like I anticipated from last week when they had an encounter backstage, I said it would be great for both of them to have a singles bout, mainly for Josh Briggs because he's usually stuck in a tag team sense. You know, much like I was just talking about Butch on SmackDown, it's typically Butch and Ridge Holland stuck in a tag team capacity on SmackDown. And as cool as that is to see, Pete Dunne is a amazing singles wrestler, and much like Josh Briggs, it's been good to see him and Brooks Jensen get some opportunities on NXT. They were even former NXT UK tag team champions. It's good to see Josh Briggs in a singles sense because he's so good in singles as he's been on the indies for years, but we've never really got to see that on NXT the last couple of years since joining NXT 2.0 back in fall of 2021. So it's just about 2 years time. I had high hopes for this match. I didn't necessarily think Josh was going to win. However, I was a little upset to see that Josh Briggs really didn't get an opportunity. That this was all about Baron Corbin being showcased for his match this Saturday at No Mercy against Bron Breakker. Now, I do get it. Bron Breakker's a powerhouse, a monster, if you will, on NXT. So Baron Corbin had to get a convincing win leading into their match this Saturday. So that I understand. From a booking standpoint, I understand it. It's just unfortunate that it had to happen up against Josh Briggs. But that's what took place here. Briggs was out there with his tag team partner, Brooks Jensen and Fallon Henley. And again, this was very short. Corbin hit Briggs with his end of days finisher for the win. Post-match, Corbin was talking a whole lot of smack about Breakker on the microphone in the center of that ring. Cue Breakker's music. Breakker makes his way out. He let his actions do the talking. Security had to break these two up. Security, referees, you name it. And actually, this would not be the last time you see the two of them cross paths on NXT on Tuesday night. They mix it up later on to close the show, actually, which we'll get to. So the camera cuts backstage, and we see Trick Williams knocking on Shawn Michaels' door. Trick asks, do you got a minute? Now, Shawn wasn't pictured here. He says, come on in. Now, I'm curious to how that discussion went. Obviously, I found out what ended up happening from that just a little while later, which I cannot wait to discuss. But I said to myself, wow, Trick Williams was just saying in the center of that ring a few minutes ago, I think it's my time for some singles gold. And here he is, not wasting a moment, looking for an opportunity, potentially at No Mercy. So I found that to be very good. Hey, go out and get it. Why not? So we get a Tiffany Stratton, Becky Lynch video package hyping up their matchup this weekend at No Mercy. It's a rematch from 2 weeks ago when Becky Lynch defeated Tiffany Stratton for her NXT Women's Championship. And, To me, I think Becky Lynch is going to retain. However, if Tiffany Stratton did win, I wouldn't be completely surprised because I don't really think this is about the length of Becky Lynch's reign, right? I don't think she's necessarily going to reign as NXT champion for months on end. However, um, it's to help promote ticket sales for this Saturday's NXT No Mercy, being that they're typically in the Performance Center week after week, right? They're in Orlando, Florida when they do their NXT tapings. So, they only pop out of Orlando a few times a year for these premium live events, not even every one, just some. So No Mercy, Becky Lynch being on the front of that poster is obviously going to sell some more tickets than it typically would have without her. So her dropping the title Saturday could very, very well happen. I'm probably going to side with Becky. But again, I'm very much looking forward to it. Their first matchup was pretty good. Nothing to write home about, but it was good 2 weeks ago. And can Tiffany Stratton get the job done and become a two-time NXT Women's Champion? So next up, we have Hank and Tank. That's Hank Walker and Tank Ledger going up against the newly formed tag team of Bronco Nima and Lucian Price with Scripps as their manager, formerly known as Reggie. They're called Out the Mud. Now, I personally haven't seen a ton of this tag team. I know they've only been on NXT maybe just a little over a month and a half. I know from reading that they've been running through the competition, and possibly on their way to NXT Gold in the very near future, Tag Team Gold. And so, this match was relatively short. Out the Mud, there's some big boys. Lucian Price pins Tank Ledger. This is a team that, is looking to make a splash right off the jump, and I don't really see who's going to get in their way. Huge heel tag team. Pretty good choice to be their manager, so we'll see what happens with this team. Going to definitely keep my eyes on Out the Mud. Now backstage, Gigi Dolan, she's seen stretching before her match. Suddenly, the lights go out. I said to myself, well, Blair Davenport must be around the corner or even closer, and that's exactly what happened. Once these lights went out, you could hear Gigi Dolan being attacked viciously. And the lights come back on. Blair Davenport is seen laughing while standing over Gigi Dolan, who is laying on the ground in agony, definitely in pain, and it possibly could have cost them their match later on in the night that was scheduled to take place. So we will hear from Blair Davenport in a little bit. She always seems to have something to say. Now this was a lot of fun. We saw this segment a few times throughout the course of this show with Tony D'Angelo and Stax, the NXT Tag Team Champions. They're either at home or at a fancy Italian restaurant, either or. They had obviously people serving them food. They had waiters, and they had plenty of security, mafioso type deal there. And their guests, Umberto and Garza, they were their first guests. We found out that there would be more throughout the course of the night. Now Stax asks them, he says, let me ask you guys something. Why does it look like your chest was mauled by a saber-toothed tiger? Now, Garza and Umberto look at the matching tattoos on their chest, and Garza replies with, are you disrespecting our grandfather? Umberto adds to that, he says, these tattoos are here to remind us who we are, and it's to keep the message from our grandfather alive. Garza proceeds to say a message that includes taking those NXT Tag Team Championships from you guys. That Tony D and Stax laughed it off while the Creed brothers show up. Now, as they're being searched by security as they walk in, much like Garza and Umberto were at the start of this show, Tony D says, come on, they're good. They've never held a weapon in their life. Am I right? And so Tony D, he's just got such a great persona, great gimmick. I think he could go very far, just not only on NXT. I think he's done great the past year and a half, 2 years on NXT. Would have liked to see him with some singles gold by now, but, I'm glad at least he has tag gold for now. And I think he could be great for the main roster as well. I think he's one of the better personas in all of WWE, really. So Julius Creed says, we'll eat, but we're also here to discuss business. Stax says, nothing's been settled yet. Relax, eat something. Then Stax looked at his phone and he lets Tony D know that OTM or OTW. Out the Mud is on the way. So as I was just saying a couple minutes ago, Out the Mud, maybe, before year's end, they could be the NXT Tag Team Champions. But hey, look, maybe they're thinking before this weekend is over, we could actually become Tag Team Champions. We're not wasting any time. We're not fooling around here on NXT. So we go back to the locker room area. Tyler Bate and Axiom were amongst themselves while Trick Williams walks in. He informs them that he just got done talking to Shawn Michaels and that tonight's triple threat match has become a fatal four-way to decide the number one contender for the NXT North American Championship to go up against Dominic Mysterio this weekend at No Mercy. That's huge news. I said to myself, prior to Trick Williams being added, my favorite for the match, I didn't think it was going to be Axiom. Tyler Bate had a chance a month and a half ago when there was that whole thing with Wesley, right? Tyler Bate, even Mustafa Ali. And I said, maybe Dragon Lee, third time's a charm. He lost 3 weeks ago on NXT when Rey Mysterio was in his corner. He lost Monday on Raw. And I said, maybe this Saturday is when Dragon Lee, third and final time, gets it done. And with Trick Williams being inserted, I said, man, with the momentum this guy's had the last month or two, especially even earlier in the night, I said Trick Williams very well may be the guy to go up against Dominic Mysterio. We find out towards the end of the night. It was the final match of the night, and that's huge news, though. That's big stuff. So the next match we had here was DIJAK versus Eddy Thorpe in a strap match. Now, going back to last week's promo video with Eddy Thorpe, I knew he was all business. I knew this would be vicious. And I know DIJAK, he could go, right? This is for years. Dominic Dijakovic has been doing his thing, minus the whole T-bar bit, right, on Retribution, main roster. That's not his fault. But anyway, I said, wow, this could be very vicious. I mean, when DIJAK and Dragunov a couple months ago went at it, that was vicious as well. So this strap match was really something. Commentary made it a point to let us know that Thorpe's 6-year-old niece was in attendance watching this brutal showdown between these two. DIJAK was taking it to Thorpe in the early going. Thorpe was able to get the job done, hitting DIJAK with an elbow from the top rope before scoring the pinfall. Now, post-match, DIJAK, he was a sore loser, typical heel fashion, attacking Thorpe. Now, he had him tied upside down with the strap they used in that match. He took off his belt, whipped Eddy numerous times across the chest, across the shoulders, right in the direction of Thorpe's family who were sitting ringside. Clearly, Eddy Thorpe is not okay with that level of disrespect, and this feud, in my opinion, is far from over. So I think we're going to see more of these two leading into the fall months. So now we get an NXT women's match coming up here. Dani Palmer making her way to the ring. Now, during Dani Palmer's entrance, yet again, we saw Blair Davenport showing up by ringside to the commentary table and says, "Oh, what a shame that Gigi can't go tonight." She continues to say, "Next time you want to play my game, remember how you feel right now. Because next time it's going to be far worse." So again, with those threats and, definitely not empty promises, because Blair Davenport typically delivers on anything she says. She pretty much does. So she's dangerous. So anyway, instead of that Gigi Dolan Blair Davenport match, we got Dani Palmer going up against the new, and depends who you ask, improved. I think she's improved, even though she's going from babyface to heel, Thea Hale. Her entrance music initially hits with her old Chase U theme. Jacy Jane emerges from the back with the snap of a finger. The screen turns dark, and new graphics and theme music play for Thea Hale. Much more grungier version, going from, again, this babyface character to a heel. And to be honest, it's very much needed. I do love her new look, and I think just as weeks progress, time progresses this year, she's going to get more acclimated to becoming a heel, and it's going to be even more natural. But so far, so good. I can honestly say it was time to give up the whole goofy Chase U bit. It worked for her. It was a good introduction to NXT for her the past year and a half. And now it's definitely time for something different for Thea Hale. Now, one thing I noticed from Fightful, Joel Pearl wrote on Twitter, he said Thea Hale is using Jody Threat's Impact theme. Oh, hell nah. So I do watch Impact regularly on Thursday nights, which, I also do cover. Jody Threat, I've seen her a few times out there. She's a great wrestler. Never really picked up on her theme music, but obviously I went back and checked, and that's accurate. So same exact theme music as Jody Threat, but regardless, at least it's a good song. Definitely digging the new theme song for Thea Hale. So Booker T goes on to say she used to play the role of Hannah Montana, but right now she's a wrecking ball for Miley Cyrus. We all know that, right? Don't we? It's all our guilty pleasure Miley Cyrus album. Maybe it's just me. So anyway, great reference, great comparison. With some fine tuning, again, this version of her could be very believable. It's not cringe at all. And I think with time, the ring gear wasn't bad. The all black ring gear, definitely liked it. So I think, whether it's her ring gear, her persona, we know she could wrestle good. And she's only, barely 20 years old. I know that. So she's well on her way to coming into her own on NXT. And I think she'll be really good for the women's division overall on the main roster in due time. So she's intense. She brings the tenacity. And she was pretty ruthless. And Thea Hale wins by submission via the Kimura lock, as we've seen her do numerous times before. It's just a little more vicious this time, now that she's a heel. Dani Palmer tapped out right away. Duke Hudson and Andre Chase from Chase U, where she's formerly from, were looking up in disbelief of Thea Hale's new persona. But can't discount, the girl still gets it done. And I'm glad that they're headed in a new direction for Thea Hale. Like I said, definitely much overdue as far as the change was concerned for her. So next up here, we have backstage segment. We have Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, and that Trick's all excited. He found out from Shawn Michaels that he's now involved in this triple threat, making it a fatal four-way for this NXT North American Championship opportunity. He goes on to tell Melo, and I'm going to show the rest of the world, what I'm about. And Melo says, actually, Melo was visibly distracted. He was looking at his phone, and Trick asks, "Are you listening?" Now, Melo said, "You did your thing against Joe Gacy." And Trick says, "I'm going to win this fatal four-way, and I'll get my title shot against Dom at No Mercy." Again, Melo's distracted on his cell phone doing God knows what. And Trick asks, "Yo, what's up, bro?" Frustrated with Melo, visibly. "Am I on mute or something?" And he says he's got a lot on his plate with his contract signing with Dragunov later in the night. That's what Carmelo chalked that up to. Trick says, "Well, you go handle that. I've got my own business to handle." That this was the first time we're really seeing noticeable friction between the two of them. Some kind of a misunderstanding. Clearly Melo's fault. I get it. Melo's got to do what he's got to do, but Trick's been there for Melo for so long throughout the duration of NXT. Like I said, for those 2 North American Championship title reigns, for this current reign as NXT champion, hyping Melo up, being the spliff star to his Busta Rhymes, if you will, giving him good introductions before his premium live event matches out there, before they have the great graphics, before Melo comes out and his music drops. So, Trick has every reason to be feeling slighted by Melo. And I was curious how they were going to, approach this with the two of them, how they would eventually be at odds. Now, it's not completely having them at odds, but it's planting the seeds for them to have problems. And I do get it now. And now it's just not based off of where I thought they were going to go with Trick Williams just being jealous. No, it's more so Trick Williams, doing it on his own, accomplishing these things without Melo. And, all the while, Melo's still doing his thing in NXT. You can't deny that or discount that. But at the same time, Trick Williams is doing his thing. And he's like, where's my pat on the back? Or where's my, shout out? Or, keep going where I was always there for you. So, it's not 50-50 here. So anyway, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens between the two of them. Again, that's not the last we see of Melo or Trick Williams on this episode of NXT. So here we go. Fatal 4-way for the North American Championship opportunity this Saturday at No Mercy. Dragon Lee versus Tyler Bate versus Axiom versus Trick Williams. Tyler Bate jumped right into the midst of this match. As we all knew, if you're familiar with Tyler Bate, he may be short in stature, but he's strong as an ox. At one point, he was swinging Axiom by his legs, similar to a Cesaro swing, and while at the very same time holding on to Dragon Lee on his shoulders, pretty much Lex Luger rack attack. Just think of that. So he's got somebody in a rack attack essentially while swinging somebody by their legs. It's unbelievable. Axiom off the back of Tyler Bate while he's attempting to score a pinfall. While Bate was attempting to score a pinfall on Trick Williams, Axiom jumps with an incredible Canadian Destroyer to Dragon Lee. I felt bad for the referee during this match, trying to keep up with these 4 men every moment, every second, and all the while trying to see if anybody's trying to, score a pinfall or submission in the process, not just trying to keep everything, at bay. Crazy match. So much going on. So the way this match ended up was incredibly interesting. Dragon Lee headbutts Trick Williams. Williams bounces into Bate, knocking him off the apron. Williams falls onto Axiom, falls directly onto him, and the referee begins to count. 1, 2, 3. Just like that, Trick Williams pins Axiom for the win, becomes the #1 contender. The crowd chants, "Whoop that trick." 1 word, 3 syllables, momentum. Trick Williams got it, man. He's going one-on-one with Dominik Mysterio this weekend for Dom's North American Championship at No Mercy. I'm hoping Trick gets it done. I'm not necessarily sold that he will, but hey, him at least getting this title opportunity at minimum is a big spotlight for him, right? This is at leaving the Performance Center. It's at a different arena. They're in a different state than they typically are doing their NXT tapings. So this is a good look for Trick Williams, and I'm very happy for him. I really am. Now, we come to find out in regards to this match that Shawn Michaels elected Dragon Lee to serve as a special guest referee when Dirty Dom defends his title this Saturday at No Mercy. So I wonder what that's all about. I wonder if Dragon Lee feels slighted. I wonder if Lee potentially turns heel and robs Trick Williams of his opportunity because he feels he should be the one to dethrone Dominik Mysterio. And again, I feel like Lee should be the guy to get it done. But then again, I won't be upset if Trick Williams gets it done either. The reason I don't think Trick Williams is necessarily going to win this match, without getting to my predictions too early here, is because just a week and a half ago, Mustafa Ali was slated for this opportunity against Dominik Mysterio. Now, I don't know if they had Ali winning that. If I had to guess, if I was a betting man, I would say Ali was going to lose and Dom was going to retain. So with less than a week's time or so, throwing Trick Williams in that spot instead of Mustafa Ali, I think it's more so about the opportunity than it is about, Trick Williams necessarily getting the gold, getting the job done. And this way they could justify the loss, especially, they're not going to have a regular WWE official or NXT official in there. Dragon Lee could get in the mix, or even if Lee doesn't turn heel and hit Trick Williams at some point, maybe it's an accidental bump and those two feud after this. So it could go many ways, but I'm very curious as to what happens. Now, speaking of Mustafa Ali, as soon as that match concluded, that fatal four-way that Trick Williams won, Ali got on Twitter and said, "Good for Trick, deserves it." So that was very nice and professional of Mustafa Ali to go ahead and do that. He didn't have to. He could be feeling very bitter about the way things went with WWE, especially the past week. He was supposed to be the one in that match. So him giving the nod to one Trick Williams, I thought that was very classy of him. So back to the dinner with all the tag teams, right? Out the Mud arrive. Tony D says they'll get a booster seat for Reggie. Scripps, that was good. Again, Tony D, he's just hysterical. Now, they all want to know which team it will be at No Mercy that Tony D and Stacks are going to defend their NXT Tag Team Championships against. Out the Mud says, "You're going to give us our title shot or this place is going to get dirty real quick." Tony D then snaps his fingers. Again, there was at least 6, maybe more, mafioso-looking family members, all men coming out from the kitchen, and they join Tony D and Stacks. They're like, "All right, Out the Mud, you want to play that game? We're rolling way deeper, and we're looking way more dangerous at this moment in time. You guys might be dangerous in the ring, but right now, definitely they had home court advantage, if you will, Tony D." So the way this went, Tony D tells them all to sit down, shut up. Here's how it's going to go. It's their first premium live event title defense, and he says he wants to see all of their ugly mugs at No Mercy. So again, he says, "To the fatal four-way, salute." They toasted to that. So we're going to have the Creed brothers, we're going to have Out the Mud, and we're also going to have Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza going up against Tony D'Angelo and Stacks for those NXT Tag Team Championships. Now, I said to myself, wow, this is going to be a really good match. Creed brothers, former NXT Tag Team Champions. The other two teams have not won NXT Tag Gold, but still, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. To see. So now, speaking of Dragon Lee, going back to him, he attacked Dominic Mysterio backstage during an interview. Dom was just starting yet again another interview with Mackenzie Mitchell. Mackenzie wanted to see how Dom felt about Trick Williams becoming the #1 contender. Again, though, Dragon Lee, even though he did not win that match, he went right after Dom. Clearly unfinished business, feeling some type of way, feeling he should have been the one in that match Saturday at No Mercy against Dom. And with him being the special guest referee now, since Shawn Michaels gave him the nod on that, Lee could be feeling some type of way against anybody, not just Dom, but like I said, against Trick Williams, saying, this is my opportunity for the taking. This is my title by any means. I'm going to get it, nobody else. So we'll see. We might see a spicier side of Dragon Lee. He's been pretty, low key outside of, being a great wrestler. Persona wise, he's been pretty low key the last few months since signing with NXT. So now Trick Williams runs up to Carmelo Hayes backstage, excited about winning that #1 contender spot for Saturday. And Carmelo goes on to say he's proud of him. Mello and Trick at the very same time say it's Trick Mello gang and we always gonna be here. So they ended things on the up and up. Didn't end so well earlier in the night with them going their separate ways. Trick Williams not happy with Carmelo for not paying attention to his excitement going into the Fatal 4. But coming out of the Fatal 4, things were a little different here. So I'm glad to see that things are looking well between them, at least for the time being, right? So now before I get to this final segment, well, one of the final segments of NXT, very interesting note here that Brian Pillman Jr., he's heading to NXT. We saw a vignette air on Tuesday night. Someone sitting in a dark room watching television. The television showed a brief clip of Cincinnati Bengals footage and the open to WCW Saturday night before quickly ending. That Pillman's father, Brian Pillman, as we all know, unfortunately, his untimely passing in 1997, played for the Bengals before eventually transitioning to pro wrestling, spending much of his career in WCW in the early to mid-90s. It was reported back in August that Pillman had signed with the company and was starting at the WWE Performance Center after being seen at the PC in previous months. However, WWE had not confirmed that he had signed with the company. And so, we'll see what happens there. As far as Brian Pillman's concerned, I'm very excited to see him. I do think that he'll be a great addition to NXT. Now, Pillman started wrestling in 2016. He started making appearances for AEW in 2019, where he teamed up with Griff Garrison. They were the Varsity Blondes, a little homage to his father, Brian Pillman, and Steve Austin, stunning Steve Austin, which ended up being Stone Cold Steve Austin. They were the Hollywood Blondes in WCW. And his contract with AEW expired in July. His last match was back in May, where he and Brock Anderson lost to the Guns at a house show. So that was pretty much that as far as Brian Pillman's concerned. When are we going to see him debut? I don't know. I would guess before the month of October is over, we'll see him. So we'll see what happens with Brian Pillman Jr. Excited for him. I know he wasn't able to make a huge splash in AEW, but I think this opportunity in NXT is right where he needs to be. They're going to focus on him and take their time with getting him where he needs to be. He's slowly but steadily worked on his character and his in-ring ability from what I saw on AEW even, and I was familiar with him even before he signed with them on the Indies. So that be that. Let's go to the NXT Championship match contract signing for No Mercy. Now, this is Ilja Dragunov going up against Carmelo Hayes yet again, hoping to get the job done this time. He was not able to get it done at NXT, the Great American Bash. However, he's looking to get it done now. So there was plenty of back and forth between the two, but there was one crucial moment here where Melo caught himself. But enough was said for us to have heard what he mentioned, and so he didn't catch himself early enough. Now, what happened here was he rang off a brief list of people that he's not. Don't compare me to this guy or that guy. And they were guys who Dragunov defeated in recent months. And he goes on to say, Melo went on and said, "I'm not Trick." And then he kind of bit his tongue. He stopped himself and he said, "Oh no, what am I doing?" And again, taking an inadvertent shot at his friend, Trick Williams. That's not good. Just when I thought things were all good and brushed under the rug backstage and ended on a high note saying, Carmelo telling Trick, "I'm proud of you." He then goes on to say this mess. And, Trick is definitely going to have something to say about this in the coming weeks. Could be as early as, next Tuesday on NXT. I don't think anything will be said at No Mercy. They're both going to have championship matches to worry about, unless one interferes with the other. So we'll see what happens. Don't be surprised to see them square off potentially in the very near future, maybe before month's end, whether on a regular episode of NXT or even Halloween Havoc. Maybe a title will be involved if it's, Trick going after Melo's NXT championship if he should survive this Saturday, or if Trick is to win his NXT North American championship opportunity against Dominic Mysterio. Maybe his title will be on the line, maybe both. So we'll see. There's a lot that can be done here, but I think with or without a title, Trick Williams, Carmelo Hayes would be good. It would be a feud that we did really think we'd ever see, but in due time and due to the constant back and forth, and you can really blame Carmelo Hayes for the brunt of this. Trick Williams has pretty much kept everything good, but Carmelo's been slipping lately, specifically on this episode of NXT. So I was very surprised to hear that come out of Melo's mouth. And just as this segment was wrapping up, NXT was coming to a close. They cut to the back. Now, Baron Corbin and Bron Breakker, they were fighting in the parking lot. Breakker threw Corbin into a car. The referees failed to take him down. Baron Corbin manages to climb in the passenger door, but Bron attacks. Corbin sidesteps. Bron then charges through the door. That was pretty crazy. It looked like the door of the car was actually going to snap off. Corbin beats him down against the fender. Breakker smashes him into a garage door, slams him on the hood of the car, climbing on the hood. Then Corbin hits him below the belt, choke slam into the roof of the car, but Bron sits right up, grabs a sleeper hold on the Corbin. Baron somehow fought him off. Breakker rams him into the door again. Corbin ducks back in the building, but Bron is right behind him. Baron throws a fire extinguisher at him. Bron ducks, and they end up falling through the office of Shawn Michaels. Couldn't get any more bizarre or absurd to end this episode of NXT. Then you just see a whole flock of people run into Shawn Michaels' office once they broke through there. Referees, security, staff, and so on, trying to pull them apart as they went off air. You just saw the face of Bron Breakker looking utterly vicious, ready to tear somebody apart, not only Baron Corbin, but whoever was to get in his path. So like I said at the start of the show, I want to go for my predictions for NXT No Mercy taking place this Saturday in Bakersfield, California at the Mechanics Bank Arena. 6-match card, 5 championships on the line. So let's get to it. But before we do, I want to talk about the most recent episode of No Mercy that took place September 24th, 2017 also in California, Los Angeles to be exact, at the Staples Center. That was held by the Raw brand. And the year prior to that, it was also in California, Sacramento, at the Golden One Center, and that was held by the SmackDown brand. So I don't know, how did you guys feel? You could drop in the comments here. How did you feel about the brand exclusive pay-per-views, SmackDown, when the brand split began once again, summer of 2016? You see SmackDown and Raw every other month. Each brand would hold a pay-per-view event. I didn't mind it because they kind of zoned in more so on typical feuds or matchups for the most part. I thought it was more good than bad, more pros than cons as far as doing brand exclusive pay per views. But let me know what you thought about that time in the comments. But here we are, NXT. This is the first time they're hosting No Mercy ever, even though we've had 14 renditions of No Mercy. And what I found even more interesting was that back in 1999, when No Mercy first began, May 16th, the only time No Mercy took place outside of the United States, and by the way, every time I say No Mercy, take a shot. You'll probably be drunk off your ass. It took place at the Manchester Evening News Arena. So there wasn't just one, but two No Mercies that took place in 1999, which is incredibly rare, seeing not just WWE, but any company for that matter, having the same name pay-per-view twice in 1 year. The second one took place October 17th, 1999 in Cleveland, Ohio at the Gund Arena. So the only thing I could think relatively to in WWF specifically was in the early to mid 90s, they had In Your House, right? And WWF would have In Your House numerous times throughout the year, 3, 4, maybe even 5 times a year at most. And they had different themes, right? So, Bad Blood, I remember was one of them. And so that you can understand, but No Mercy, just simply being No Mercy, the only way you could really divvy this up, which I guess makes sense somewhat, is the first one and the only one to be outside the US took place in England, where the second one, the United States got their version of No Mercy come the fall time. So I guess that's how you can make sense of that. But I was like, wow, that's you never really see that kind of stuff twice in 1 year. It's unheard of. So enough talking. Let's get to this match card here for NXT No Mercy. Another shot. We're going to start off here with the British Rounds rules match for the NXT Heritage Cup. Again, we have Noam Dar probably coming out with all of the metaphor. Oro Mensah, Lash Legend, Jakara Jackson. Going up against Butch. And Butch, as he mentioned on Twitter, he'll have his buddy old pal coming out with him, Tyler Bate. I'm going to go with Butch. I think Butch is going to get it done. I think the insurance policy of Tyler Bate is going to do more good than bad. I'm hoping Tyler Bate is the X factor to keep those ladies and Oro Mensah in check and keeping them or preventing them from getting up on the apron or distracting the referee. And we'll see what happens. I mean, this could go a lot of ways, especially post No Mercy, as far as Tyler Bate and Butch are concerned specifically. But I'm going to go with Butch becoming the new NXT Heritage Cup champion. Next up here, singles match for the NXT Championship. Carmelo Hayes defending his title yet again against Ilja Dragunov. This one's tough. And not just the rematch between the two of them, but the fact that, there's that caveat of Trick Williams. I'm not so sure. Their relationship has been very shaky as of late. Again, as most would agree, Carmelo Hayes' fault, not Trick Williams' fault. And so depending how the match goes earlier in the night, could be a determining factor, especially if they have an exchange of some sort backstage, Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes. I feel like there's a lot of factors that come into play here. Again, the North American Championship match against Dominic Mysterio will typically happen before this NXT Championship match, which will probably be the main event. Will Trick Williams get involved in some sense? Will he come out there? Will he be there on purpose to interfere with Carmelo, or will he legitimately be out there to come help and it backfires and Ilja Dragunov's the new champion? Part of me is saying pick Dragunov in this rematch. I, however, am going to stick with Carmelo Hayes here. I do think Carmelo's going to retain. I don't think his title reign is going to be much longer, but I do think he's going to make it past No Mercy still as champion. So I'm going to go with Carmelo Hayes here. Match number 3. This is the only non-title or non-championship bout throughout the course of the night. We have Bron Breakker going up against Baron Corbin. I think no matter how much Baron Corbin delivers, and he's been doing pretty good, with his feud leading up with Bron Breakker here, but I think we got to focus on the goal here, right? To continue to build Bron Breakker up, especially when it comes to him coming to the main roster. It was said he was supposed to be on the main roster months ago, spring or summertime. Hasn't happened yet. I'm okay with that. I really am, but he'll be up sooner than later, maybe before year's end. I don't think they're going to wait as long as next year, Raw after Mania or something, but I think you got to keep adding to Bron Breakker's resume, big or small. So I think Bron Breakker is going to get the victory here, and that will be that. Match number 4. Now we have an Extreme Rules match for the NXT Women's Championship. That's another reason I'm leaning towards Becky Lynch. Tiffany Stratton could easily, I'm not going to say easily, but I could see her, winning back that NXT Women's Championship by cheating somehow. But if it's an Extreme Rules match, anything pretty much goes. So whether the referee sees it or not, Tiffany Stratton could do something that would be justified and legitimate in the eyes of the fans and the company for her to become champion. She'd get one up on Becky Lynch, the man, and get her title back. So I don't know. So far, I think I'm going to stick with the current champions. And again, a 2-week reign, even though it would be okay for Becky Lynch to just go back to Monday Night Raw and focus on her business there. And she checked off another box. She checked off another box by becoming the NXT Women's Champion. Again, a title that's eluded her whole career. She was the only one of the 4 horsewomen who never won that when she was in NXT initially. Got it done. So it doesn't matter how long her reign was, even if it's brief. That being said, though, I don't think her time is up just yet, so I'm going to go with Becky Lynch retaining the NXT Women's Championship and still defeating Tiffany Stratton. Match number 5, we have a singles match for the NXT North American Championship. Dragon Lee, remember, he will serve as the special guest referee. Again, that could play a very big factor, and that's why this is the most difficult NXT card, in my opinion, in recent memory to decide. You think of Dragon Lee in this match with Trick Williams. Then you think of Trick Williams in general with the whole Carmelo Hayes bit. What could happen there? Now Tyler Bate coming to the ring with Butch. A lot could happen there. We're all hoping that it's, or at least I am. I'm thinking, optimistically and thinking good things will happen and come out of most of these things. However, I'm not mad at the fact that if things go awry, we may be seeing some very good, interesting feuds going forward here in NXT that could get really, really juicy. If we see Carmelo versus Trick, if we see another reignited feud of Butch and Tyler Bates. So there's a lot of ways these matches could go, of course, but as much as I do want to go with Trick Williams, and again, momentum is definitely on his side, with Dragon Lee involved in this match, I think that's going to be a big determining factor, even if it's accidental, him hitting Trick Williams or whatnot throughout this match. I'm going to go with Dirty Dominic Mysterio retaining his North American Championship. It's not so much about me thinking it's not his time to lose yet. It certainly could be Trick's time to win, even though he was just put in this match and literally inserted into that triple threat to make it a fatal 4-way the other night, last minute. All these guys with the opportunity to replace Mustafa Ali, which as of a week ago was supposed to be the original opponent for Dom. So I don't know. It leads me to believe Dom ain't dropping just yet. And so regardless what happens with Dragon Lee and Trick Williams, Dom is going to say, and still, NXT North American Champion. So like I said, right now it's only 6 matches scheduled. I don't see them adding any more, but I think this a 6-match card, especially with the people that are on this card, is more than enough. And so we have a fatal 4-way tag team match for the NXT Tag Team Championships. So, you could say, out the mud, NXT is very big on them. Lucian Price and Bronco Nima, new to NXT. You have the Creed brothers, former NXT Tag Team Champions. Brutus and Julius, and then Los Lotharios, Humberto Correa, Angel Garza. They're very good, and they've been way overdue for some tag team gold. I would have loved to see them win tag gold on SmackDown many moons ago. And now on NXT, let's see if they could get the job done. They got these new tattoos in honor of their grandfather. They ain't playing. They're coming to get some gold. However, you got to remember that the family, Tony D'Angelo and Channing Stacks Lorenzo, this is their very first time defending their NXT tag titles at a premium live event. That's not to say they can't lose. They could very well lose to any of these teams at any given moment. They don't even have to pin one another, right? As far as I know, fatal 4-way tag team match. I don't think it's an elimination type of deal. So, hey, look, Los Lotharios could go and pin one of the Creed brothers, or vice versa, whatever, without the family even being involved, and they could very well lose those titles. So, we'll see what happens there. I think this is going to be a great showcase for all 4 teams. I don't think we've seen nearly enough of these guys as teams on NXT TV. You could say maybe the Creed brothers, we've seen a lot over the last 2 years. Outside of that, out the mud, you've seen them recently. We haven't seen a lot of Los Lotharios, and we haven't seen a lot of the NXT Tag Team Champions, the family, defending those titles. So, and they were only, tagging together very briefly prior to this run. All that being said, right, I'm going back to the very core of this, and I'm going to say the family, Tony D and Stacks, they do retain their NXT Tag Team Championships. I know, with the exception of the NXT Heritage Cup, I have all the other 4 champions retaining. I don't know. It's just the way I see it. I mean, it could just as easily go the other way, especially in that Carmelo Dragunov match. That's the one I'm most uncertain about. I would say out of all the championship matches, the one I'm most confident about as far as who is going to retain. I think Dom Mysterio retains definitely. But Carmelo, I'm not very confident about that one. Becky, I want to say I am, but again, it's Extreme Rules. Tiffany could, pull something out her hat, trick up her sleeve, and get it done. And again, the family, the 25% chance here. I'm not going to start doing Steiner math, but it's pretty simple to break down here with 4 other teams involved. But I do think they get it done. Let the others beat the hell out of each other, and then pick the bones at the end, win, and go home. So that's those are my predictions for NXT No Mercy. Again, this Saturday in Bakersfield, California, and it should be a good one. I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope all of you enjoyed my review of NXT. Very good, solid episode. There's a lot of twists and turns leading into this show of No Mercy, and I think we're going to see a whole lot. We're going to see more than just wrestling and sports entertainment on Saturday night. I think we're really in for some very, very good, juicy storylines going forward and coming out of No Mercy. I really do. Leading into the fall, I think we're going to, I'm excited for Halloween Havoc in just a few weeks' time, too. We may see a few rematches. We'll probably see, regardless if they win, if they retain their tag titles or not, the family, Tony D and Stax, I think we'll see them in a tag title bout, whether they're champions or not, in just a 2-on-2 type of deal. What's going to happen with Trick Williams? What's going to happen with Melo? What's going to happen with the 2 of their futures? Will they have gold? Will Dom Mysterio and Becky Lynch still be part of NXT when all is said and done, depending upon if they retain? And has Dragon Lee gone mad? Is he just so furious at the fact that he has not taken down Dom Mysterio in the month of September that he absolutely loses his mind on Trick and Dom as special guest referee during this match? So a lot to look forward to heading into Saturday night. But I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in yet again to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Dineen, and thanks for listening. I'll catch you next time.